Hello, in this movie, we'll look at the preferences in Illustrator. So for that, you can go to the edit menu and select preferences, and you can select general preferences. Now, these are a group of preferences that you can set for yourself. So your preferences might be different from what I set, okay? Over here, you have these different options like keyboard increment of 1 pixels, which is automatically set by default. Okay, keyboard increment means that if I press the left arrow key or right arrow key to just nudge my object a little bit, it will increase or decrease by just 1 pixels. You can change that to 2 pixels or 5 pixels or whatnot. Okay, you can do that. Now you have these other settings like scale, strokes, and effects. For example, if you have a particular object, like for example a circle with a definite amount of stroke on it, if you turn this off and then you scale the object up, the stroke will not automatically scale itself. So you will end up with a large object and a tiny stroke. Most times you don't want that, so you have to keep this ticked on. This one is scale rectangle corners, applies to a similar effect. For example, if you draw a rounded rectangle and then you scale it up, sometimes the corners won't scale up, so you will end up with a large rectangle and a small rounded corner. If you don't want that, keep this tick on. Then you can go into the sync settings. I don't use these because I work with one computer. If you have multiple devices that you work with Adobe Illustrator on, you want to turn this on and you can click on Manage Account and go into your Creative Cloud account and set it up there so that whenever you sign in from another device, all your projects will be lined up for you in the cloud so you can access it from anywhere else. Then you can move on to selection and anchor displays. Selection tolerance of 3 pixels. That means that how close you should be before you can select an object. If you have a particular object on screen and you want to select it, you should be at least within a distance of 3 pixels from it on all sides. That is what this tolerance is about. You can increase it or decrease it. Then you have these portions like highlight anchor on mouse over, hide corner widget for ankles greater than some, stuff like that. And you have this important option here like object selection by path only. If I take this and then I press OK, I'll show you something. I'll just draw a rectangle with a solid fill color or a gradient or whatever. I have drawn a rectangle. Now I want to select it and I am pressing in the middle of these in the middle of this rectangle where the texture is, but I'm not able to select it. But if I go over to this path, then now I'm able to select it because I clicked on that path. That's what that option corresponds to, which means that you can select objects only using the path and not using the fill or any object. You cannot click anywhere on the object and select it. Usually nobody wants that, okay? And I don't want that, so what I will do is I will turn that off, object selection by path only. No, I want object selection even if I click somewhere inside of it. Then you have these typing options like size or leading and tracking, baseline shift, stuff like that. We will deal with all that later when we deal with the text, text tool and the text options. Then you have the units. In general, you will work in pixels when you're working on a screen, but if you want to change it to picas, inches, or millimeters, you can do that. And strokes are basically in points, and type font size, which is a type, is also in points usually. Nobody wants to change that, but if you want to for some reason, you can do that. Then you can go to guides, and guides are just vertical and horizontal lines that run through your canvas. Canvas meaning this area, and these guides show exactly where to mark up the objects and all that, which you can set by yourself. Now, in general, the color by default will be a cyan. So unless your project has a lot of cyan color involved, you don't want to change it because you can always see the cyan guides. And you can change the style into dots or lines. I prefer lines because it's a little bit more solid and you can see what's going on. Now you can customize the color of your grid if you want to, but I'd just leave it there. And then there are smart guides. We'll talk about smart guides later because they just help you align, align certain objects to a particular angle or a particular anchor point and stuff like that. Slices are an option for web design and website mockups and all that. We'll look at that later. Now you have these miscellaneous options here like plugins and scratch disks and all that. Scratch disk is where you store all your data that you can select where you want to. And then we'll go on to user interface. Now, if you have used Illustrator, if you have been using Illustrator for a long time, you might prefer a light colored interface. If you want that, you can go into light color, but I prefer a dark color interface. You can take it all the way to dark if you want to, but I prefer the medium dark, which is the default. So I'll take it to medium dark. Now you can also go to GPU performance that we discussed earlier for the automatic animated zoom and all that. And make sure you change your graphic card to whatever graphic card you have in your system that's better than the other one. Okay, right now I have not changed it, so it shows Intel even though I have a Radeon. And then you have other file handling and clipboard options and all that. And you can automatically set recovery data time every 2 minutes or even after 30 seconds. But because if for some reason your software crashes and you want to recover that data, you can recover it in a 2 minute span or a 1 minute span. For example, if it crashes right now, I could recover a version that existed about 2 minutes ago. If I want that to happen every 1 minute or 30 seconds, I can do that, but it will, degrade the performance. And I can turn off data recovery for complex documents, which is presently turned off. That means that if your document has a number of different layers and it's too complicated to keep track of, you probably want to turn off data recovery for that because that will improve the performance. But if you always want data recovery for these complex documents, you can turn this tick mark off, but eventually that will degrade your performance because as the document gets more and more complex, it will try to save the data in a timely manner of 2 minutes. So it's difficult to save that data every 2 minutes because there's too much data. And then appearance of black, you can have a 100K black or a rich black, that is crushed black. By default, it's crushed black, and I'll just leave it at that. Technology previews are for Creative Cloud charts and all that. I will talk about it later. So this is all about the preferences. You can set your preferences in whatever way you want. So that's it for this lesson. We'll see you in the next lesson. Okay.